Alright, good morning. Good afternoon. Today we're going to talk about typical workflow for Introduction to Autodesk Inventor or any tutorials that you'll be doing in this class. So as typical, you're going to go to the class website as always, and from the home page you're going to go to the blog, because this is where we're hosting our classes, and you'll scroll down to your class Intro to Drafting and Design, and you'll go to the specific week that you're associated with. So in this case, we're in February, so we're going to click on February 8th through 12th, and we're going to take a look. You're going to see that this is the introduction, the Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. So part of what this chapter is about is getting you oriented to the whole interface. And you'll get to look through some of the chapter as we move along, but I'm going to walk you through some of the practices as well as how to answer and upload any items to Google Drive for assignment submissions. So Chapter 1 is all going to be about the interface, getting started, and what the basics are of Inventor so that you have the right mindset when you start to 3D model. So the first thing I'd like you to do is when you get to this day and you start looking over Chapter 1, I want you to take this video here, this introduction training video. This is a set of tutorials I've followed before, and you're going to copy this URL because we basically want to watch this video in YouTube, and we're going to paste that URL into a new tab, and this is where you're going to watch the first 5 or 6 videos in this playlist. Okay, so if you click on that Inventor playlist, you're going to get a sense of each one of these videos to the basics. So I want you to watch the first 5 to 6 before you start the practices. And these give you a good sense as you move through step by step what things are in Inventor and what they mean. So after you watch those first 5 videos, we're going to start the basics of how we go through our Inventor introduction. So once you've watched the first 5, then we're going to open up Chapter 1, and you open up Chapter 1 by clicking on the link provided. When you click on that link, you'll get the full chapter of the tutorials, and as you'll see here, I'm going to run through those, talk about it, and then we'll start the practices. But it's up to you to read and scan some of this information, because I'm not going to necessarily tell you what's significant, but when you work on the review questions at the end of the chapter and the practices, it will be important for you to have looked over some of this information, especially some of the vocabulary terms. So when first beginning Inventor, once you've clicked on your chapter, we want to go ahead and make sure we're clear of 2 things. The first is you want to make sure, if you click on this folder icon, that you've found and you have the class files. So you're going to go to My Computer, you're going to go to your C drive, and under C drive you should see Intro Class Files. This is where if you double click, you'll have all of these practice files for us to work from throughout the next year or 2 in Inventor. It's key that you have this. If you don't, please let me know and we'll get you uploaded with the class files. So that's the first step to make sure you have. The next thing is this Inventor icon that you can have on your start menu or your taskbar. Because we don't want to come to class all the time and search for this, I'm going to have you go to the start menu. You're going to go to all programs, and your Inventor is going to be located under local programs. Under local programs, we'll go to AutoCAD and then finally Inventor. But before we open this, we're going to right click and you're going to say Pin to Taskbar, right? And when you do that, it'll pop up down here from now on. So after you've looked through some of the chapter, you're going to scroll to the bottom, right? You're going to scan through and you're going to pick up some of this information through some of the videos you've watched, as well as scanning over just slowly to read through the chapter. But I'm going to go ahead and pick up on Practice 1A to kind of get you a feel for the workflow of what it's typically like to work in these software tutorials. So Practice 1A is all about opening and manipulating parts. So we're going to go ahead and open Inventor. So once you open Inventor, you're going to get, a dialog box that's going to pop up like you see here. And we're going to start opening some projects from the class file. So as I read through these, and this will be similar to what you're doing, you're going to open up, click Browse, we're going to go to our C drive, and we're going to open up the file intro to modeling.ipj. So as you'll see here, here's my home screen in Inventor. You'll actually even get a sense of all the old projects that you've worked on, right? Recent projects. But for right now, we're going to go to Open. And from the Open dialog box, this is where I want you to navigate to your computer, to your C drive, and ultimately to your class files. Once we go to our class files, you'll see we have tons of choices, but we're looking for Intro to Modeling .ipj. Let's see if we can find that. So one thing I noticed is you may be missing a class file. In the case that you're missing a class file, what you're going to do is you're going to take and you're going to go to this website down here on the bottom of my screen. This website will download all the class files for you. And so what you do is you paste that into your browser, or you paste, let's see if we can copy that. Oh, there we go. So once you go to this website here, once you write this website into your browser, it's going to immediately pop up with these zip files, right? One of these zip files will open up. You want to click to open this zip file, and you're going to run the application, because this is where we're unzipping all of these different class files. There we go. And now we should have all of the class files we're looking for. So let's see what it tells us to do. We need to browse intro to modeling.ipj. What we may do so now we've basically just opened up a basic template file. That's all we're looking at right here. And the first file we want to open to pick up where we left off is the file joint.ipt. So that's going to be this file, not drawing, it's a part. So we're going to open that, and we're going to walk through step by step to get oriented to how to zoom in and out of a model, how to use some of the different buttons. So I'm going to keep the book open here to the right so you can kind of get a feel of what step I'm at and where I'm moving through. These should be a pretty quick chapter. So here we have a part. One thing we're looking at here is the graphics window, this large area the object is in, our model browser, our ribbon, right? This is our modeling ribbon that we have, our navigation panel. our quick access toolbar where we've got some shortcuts, and even our main file root menu. First thing we'll do is we'll go to this navigate panel. You'll see we've got zoom. You can click on this zoom, and the way I usually zoom is scroll the wheel out and in, right? If you click the middle wheel, right, the center wheel on your mouse, you can pan around. So this is one good way to move: pan, click, and shift, okay? The other one is to hold the shift button and click your middle wheel. This is the most important one, because now once you hold those two, you can actually orbit three-dimensionally around your object. So you might get all topsy-turvy, and then if you run into an instance where you need to go back to your home, you can use the view cube over here to take you back to your home. You can also click on the cube here and here, right? But I use the orbit command with shift and clicking the middle wheel. So there's your zoom functions. You can also zoom using certain selections, so we can actually highlight an object, an entity, and we can zoom to it by changing these components. So we can zoom all, we can zoom into certain portions, right, and so on and so forth. We can make a window even that the file will zoom around. Another cool way that you could look around is you can actually zoom to faces and edges. So up here on the quick access toolbar, you can actually change these faces and edges and then do zoom selected. So we could do faces, zoom selected, and then we start actually zooming in on a point, or so on and so forth. Now that we've zoomed selected to a few areas, we're going to start looking at the navigation wheel. That's this object right here. If you pull this object out, you can look at, like I double click here, we can look at zooming. So if you click on an area and hold, it'll let you zoom. You can orbit by clicking that navigation wheel. So this little wheel is kind of like a way to rewind steps through all the zooming activities we've been doing. It's been remembering. So this little navigation wheel does some interesting. We can center our view around. We can even walk, where it becomes 3D, like we're walking around the object. We're going to rewind a couple steps. So we click and hold, and we can go forward and backward in time. So let's close that out. We've got the pan command using the center. That's the hand. You can also click the hand over here, and it lets you pan. Anytime you're in a function and you want to get out, you hit escape. Alright, so if we want to rotate the model, we can rotate the model using this orbit command. When you click orbit, it gives you this window that sort of is like crosshairs to move around a model. But we'll hit escape to go back. Let's see what other steps we have. So when you're using this orbit command, you can notice when I'm inside the bubble, I have a spherical shape, but when I'm outside the bubble, I only have a 90-degree rotational shape. Same here. So notice how your cursor changes. It's very subtle. Where are we going now? Remember to use your isometric home. So this takes you right back to isometric view. Hit escape to get out of any functions you don't like. Then another really cool function of Inventor is there's a look at button. So if you click this face, it'll orient your camera to whatever you click on. So I may click on this face here and then say look at. If I want to go back to my home view, I could look at this face, and it actually orients my camera accordingly, which is a really beneficial tool when you get more complicated objects. In the same way, we could look at like our multi-view, our top, front, and right sides. We can go right side, we could click 90, go top side, click 90 again, and go front side. So that gives you a sense of how to lay out your orientations to the cube. And one of my next parts, which is one of my favorite parts as well, is how to change the visibility of the file, because we don't always want to see an object solid. We want to see different qualities about that object. So there's two ways you can do it, main ways. The first is over here on your navigation panel, you have your different zoom commands, but we also have a visibility options here. If you click down on that arrow, you'll see a whole list of different options: wireframe, shaded with edges, monochrome, watercolor, and we can play with these to get different results. You do realistic, where it looks like different plastic when we change the material, monochrome, wireframe. You even make it look like a hand illustration. But we'll go back to shaded with hidden edges. That's one of my favorites. Now, the next part we want to talk about, now that we've discussed how to move around the model and look at the model, is we want to talk about the origin and the master datum planes in the model. Okay, so whenever you start a model, the best thing to always expand in your model browser is the origin planes and axes. These are the backbones of any model, because if you share your models or anything with anyone else, these become the orientation points, right? The 0, 0 in the XY, XZ, and YZ is the coordinate that all other models are hosted from. So now you can hold control, and you can actually pick, by hold control, the different planes, deselect them, reselect them, and so on. You can also see the axes that run through the model. So these are ways that you can get a sense of the layout. So that's a basic part model. Now the next thing we're going to do, and following along with the task, is we're going to open a drawing of this same part. Now if I go to open, it's going to open a whole nother drawing down here. So I'm going to go to joint.idw, which is this one, right? Inventor drawing IDW. I'm going to open that, and you'll notice down here you're going to have another window open accordingly. So this is a drawing of that exact same part. What we're seeing is a live version of your joint.ipt file. So if we go in here, and because Inventor is associative, that means it builds a relationship from this file to the original. You can actually change components in portions of the file and watch them update. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to activate and change a portion of one of the fillets. And a fillet is a rounded edge. So on the original file, we're going to right click on fillet 9 in the model browser and select show dimensions. Fillet 9's over here. Right click, say show dimensions, and we're going to change this to 0.05. To change a dimension, you double click on it. 0.05. And we're going to check box that. And notice nothing changed except the number. The way we make the change happen among every file is with this lightning bolt local update command. So what that does is sends the update through the model and makes the change. Now if we want to see a better version of that, I can undo. We've changed it to 0.05 and I update and watch it make the object softer. So now we want to double click on hole 1 in the model browser and open the dialog box and mini toolbar. So we're going to go up here to hole 1, we're going to double click, and when you double click you should see something pop up like this. Right? If I double click here, you should get that hole that pops up. Change the diameter from 0.25 to 0.15. Delete 0.15, and then we're going to say OK. Notice that happened on a mini toolbar and a bigger toolbar. The next thing we'll do, and an option you could have done is we could have taken this and we could have done a show dimensions once again, and we could have changed it here and got a different result and did our local update and seen the same thing. Now, let's go back to our drawing and see what happened. If we look back at our drawing, we've done our local update. You should see a rounded edge on this file. Notice how the change of the diameter in that hole there has changed. This is the diameter we changed, 0.15. Now the next thing we're going to do is delete a feature. So we're going to go back to this file and let's turn off this. Let's delete that dimension or turn off those dimensions by just clicking elsewhere. So now in the model browser we're going to select extrusion 11 because this is like a history of everything you've ever done in Inventor. We're going to right click and we're going to say delete. Look at all these functions. But right now we're going to say delete. And when you delete an object, right, if you delete a solid void or object, it has sketches associated with it. So we may or may not want to delete those sketches. But for right now we're going to save it. So we'll say do not delete consume sketches and features. And you'll notice the drawing stays there, but the whole, the portion we had, goes away. So we're right clicking, deleting, turning off sketches and features. Now the next thing we can do, we can also go back here and let's do or see if we have a change in the file. We should have a change in the file if we save our part. We go here, we have a change in the file. Good. The next thing we're going to do is change the diameter dimension of here. So we're in a drawing, but we're actually going to take this drawing and we're going to edit. If we right click, we can actually edit the model dimension. And that's where you can change this dimension value to be whatever they say. We'll go back to the 0.25. And notice how everything changes on all the drawings. That saves you a lot of time by doing that. Now, we want to go back to the part model. We're going to change to shaded edges. And we're going to start selecting through some different faces because we're almost done. So the last little bit to go over, inside a part file, if you hover your mouse, your cursor, over an edge for an extended period of time, right? If I just hover over for just a little bit, you'll see a little box pop up like this one. This little box is a selection box that allows you to choose different features in the model. So if I click down, I get associated elements that touch what my mouse is touching. This becomes really important when you have complicated designs or models. So we're going to hover around the back side of the model over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to hover the cursor over this back face. And we're going to look for extrusion 10. So we're basically hovering over some of these objects until we get to extrusion 10. There it is. So if you hover your cursor over the inside of this extrusion, this cutout, click down, you'll find extrusion 10. That's also over here. Once you've selected it, we can actually take and suppress that feature. That means we can hide it or pretend like it doesn't exist for the time being. So we can go right click, suppress feature, and then the whole thing deletes. Now at this point, what you're going to do is, since we've made a lot of changes to the drawings, to the files, we're going to do a save as. We're going to put these in a practice folder where you'll save them. Because otherwise you're going to save over your proper files, the class files, which is incorrect. This would count against your grade. So we're going to go back, save as. We're going to save it to your My Documents. And you're going to make a folder for your specific class. So your maybe intro to drafting Inventor practices. And you're going to save your practices in here. That way, when you're done, you can raise your hand and get credit for the assignments. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I can also hit Control-Shift-S, and you'll get a Save As dialog box. Go back to my libraries, my documents, my intro to drafting files, and save the drawing. And now we have everything saved, so you can close these windows out accordingly. And we're back to the Home tab. Now that's your typical procedure. Once you've completed that, you'll then move on to the review questions. Under the review questions, you're going to answer these in a simple document, a Word document, by using the Google Class Drive, your own Google Drive. You'll make a new Google Doc, and you'll start answering chapter review questions. 1, and then your answer, right? So on and so forth. We'll say true 2, you'll do A1, B2, right? And so on and so forth. Once you've completed that, you need to title your document, first initial, last name, chapter, and your class number. Once you've finished it, right, once you've labeled all your things and you've completed your assignment, then you're going to share your document. That's when you share your document to the class Gmail, rca.designdrawing@gmail. You'll share it, you'll send it to me. When you send it to me, I'll see it in my Google Drive over time, just like some of these questions are. All right, good luck.